Kids getting robbed on the way to school, the possible connection to another crime. And we ask the school system if they inform parents about the attacks. Plus, we have team coverage of the legislative session in Annapolis, how a new bill could help juvenile offenders escape justice for violent crimes at school. City leaders say low-level crimes are failing to be enforced. The push for action gaining support from the city state's attorney and others.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Breaking now, reports say up to 10 people were shot during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. On the left side of your screen, video of the moments those shots were fired, thousands of fans running for safety. And on the right, a live look at that scene along the route right now. Again, fire officials say 8 to 10 people were injured in the shooting, but it is not clear exactly how many people were hurt. Police do have 2 people in custody. Bystanders at the scene are describing the moments the chaos erupted.
We saw people running out of Union Station on the east side of the doors pretty frantically, and at that moment we were receiving information that we needed to change where we were, so just to gather and then just get to a safe space. So there was information provided quickly, which was nice, but sure, it was a frantic situation, and it is still a little chaotic as people are still finding family members and understanding where is the best, most safe route away.
We will continue to update this story on air and online at foxbaltimore.com as we learn more throughout the newscast tonight. We are following 3 other big stories tonight. The city council battling over Baltimore's citation docket, the fight in City Hall to get police to enforce low-level crime.
In Annapolis, we're tracking public safety bills, the chances we could see laws passed to crack down on gun thefts, and how one proposal could change how kids are punished for creating problems at schools. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We begin with team coverage on the 2024 session in Annapolis. Mackenzie Frost and Rebecca Pryor have been tracking the latest on those public safety bills. Let's start with Mackenzie with the latest on a bill that would make stealing a firearm a felony. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary, right now that crime is a misdemeanor in Maryland. We're still monitoring this bill hearing. That specific bill has not been brought up today during the committee hearing for discussion. But we know that this specific plan has been a priority for Republicans in the General Assembly for several years now. In fact, it was included in the Senate and House Republican legislative priority package that they unveiled before session even started this year. And earlier this month, there was a Senate committee that did take testimony on this and other relevant and similar bills, and during that hearing itself there was no opposition testimony, but there was significant support.
Between 2017 and 2021, there were nearly 5,000 stolen firearms. We want to be sure that we have real serious penalties for this very serious crime.
It seems counterintuitive that a state that has some of the strictest firearms laws in the country looks at possessing a stolen firearm as simply a misdemeanor.
So again, we're still waiting for this specific bill to be brought up. But again, we just saw the support continues to grow among Maryland voters. That was evident in the latest Gonzalez research poll that came out yesterday, showing that 88% of Marylanders say they do support making this crime a felony in the state.
It boggles my mind, quite frankly, that it hasn't yet been made a felony. This is one of those issues. It's a serious, very important issue. Stop playing. Don't play games.
We'll continue to monitor this and let you know if this bill does come up for discussion and more testimony later at 5. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think lawmakers should make stealing a firearm a felony? This poll just opened. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Lawmakers are discussing Governor Wes Moore's proposed Center for Firearm Violence Prevention. The health department would run the center and oversee funding for community organizations that are fighting to get guns off the streets.
It's using data and predictive analytics in a way that informs what interventions need to be deployed. For example, communities that have experienced trauma, oftentimes resources go into the community for a day, a couple of days, but that trauma and the effects of that trauma not always felt in the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours. And so really wrapping services and community of trauma and addressing those issues through behavioral health interventions, other community supports would be one way to address this.
When the governor first proposed the program, Fox 45 News spoke with taxpayer watchdog David Williams, who says the state already has been putting millions of dollars into similar plans.
When we see just the very recent past that the nonprofits in Baltimore City are not helping the crime situation. And in fact, there are more questions than answers when it comes to these nonprofits receiving money. And this could be a massive waste of taxpayer money.
Well, the hearing today comes as we see more incidents involving guns in schools. Just today, a 14-year-old was arrested for having a loaded handgun in his backpack at the Stadium School in Baltimore City. The student was charged with a handgun violation after a brief foot chase with a Baltimore City Schools police officer. Last month, another 14-year-old was arrested for having a loaded handgun at Dundalk High School in Baltimore County. And in December, a 15-year-old was arrested after 3 guns were found at Dunbar High School. All 3 of those guns belonged to the same student.
As violence escalates on campuses across the state, some lawmakers are looking to decriminalize certain attacks occurring on school grounds. A new bill would block students from facing criminal charges for disturbing school activities. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor digs deeper into the controversial new bill and explains why some are calling it tone deaf. Rebecca.
Kai, critics of this bill say the timing of it is what's particularly appalling here. We know that juvenile crime has been dominating the conversations here in Annapolis this session, with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle proposing measures that would enact more consequences and more accountability for our young offenders. Meanwhile, this bill would do the opposite. In fact, if passed, House Bill 615 would block students from being charged with disturbing school activities on elementary, middle, high school, and college campuses. Now, to clarify, that charge is often partnered with violent offenses, including arson, sexual assaults, attacks with a weapon, threats, and fighting. Under this bill, students could still face charges for those specific crimes, but they would no longer face that additional charge of disturbing school activities. Currently, that charge carries a fine of up to $2,500 and up to 6 months behind bars, penalties that would be prevented under this bill. The measure was up for debate during a Ways and Means Committee hearing today. The bill's author, Delegate Shalaya Ruth, arguing that the charge disproportionately targets children of color and those with disabilities. She also says that it excessively punishes what she calls typical child behavior.
Because there is plenty of evidence that children who are arrested are more likely to reoffend and less likely to graduate from high school. So we're not helping public safety, we're hurting public safety by arresting these children for this, and we are hurting their outcomes. It's also a completely unnecessary.
Now, again, this comes at a time juvenile crime is skyrocketing across the state, which is arguably one of the top issues that lawmakers are trying to tackle this session. With that in mind, today the bill received widespread backlash, with many lawmakers calling it counterproductive and tone deaf.
It feels very tone deaf. We've had a 220% increase in a year on gun crimes for juveniles. It's really disturbing, and it feels like the sponsors of the bill just don't have their finger on the pulse of our state right now.
The lawmakers were also critical that higher education was included in this measure. We know that most college-age students are typically adults in the eyes of the law, so there was lots of questions about that as well. No vote on this bill today, but like potentially one in the future, it has passed in the House twice before. Reporting live in Annapolis, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, the debate surrounding how students should be held accountable comes as lawmakers are pushing for changes to youth crime policy in Maryland. Those changes include within the Department of Juvenile Services with shorter deadlines for intake decisions and increased staff, allowing children as young as 10 to be charged with certain crimes like firearm offenses, sexual assault, and car thefts, and extending probation for young offenders. Meantime, one point of friction is the Interrogation Act that prevents juvenile suspects from speaking to police without a lawyer present.
Lawyers understand constitutional rights. Not all parents understand that, correct?
That's correct.
So why would we put a child in that jeopardy rather than allowing the law that we've currently passed to be put in place? Why would we do this?
It effectively, quite literally, prevents the questioning of child suspects who are children.
A proposal backed by GOP lawmakers and Democratic Senator Ronald Watson from Prince George's County would allow parents to talk to their kids before speaking with an attorney.
The effectiveness of the city's citation docket is drawing criticism at an oversight hearing at City Hall. Several council members are disappointed and frustrated with the results. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live from City Hall with more. Maxine?
Well, Kai and Mary, that citation docket launched by Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates last July was meant to tackle low quality of life crimes here in the city, crimes that were not being addressed by his predecessor, Marilyn Mosby. Today, the state's attorney's office telling the council that since that docket launched from July to December of last year, 35 citations were issued by BPD that made it to the docket, to court, but only about half were rejected by police internally, meaning they were legally insufficient to proceed to prosecution. Police saying it often comes down to errors in the language, pointing out officers haven't written citations in a long time.
Why is the volume of citations issued so low?
It's still a process for us, right, to issue a citation. Even if we see that individual doing something, we still have other policies that doesn't say as soon as we engage, we're automatically issuing a citation.
Maxine, was any training done to teach officers how to write citations? Again, I'm sure some of this they probably get in the academy.
Absolutely, and police say there was training done prior to July, but they did have to re-educate themselves on this process after a few years of not writing citations. However, the state's attorney's office says they reached out and offered to do training with police in all 9 precincts, but never heard back. Meanwhile, they say all the other agencies they did training with, including MDTA and Amtrak and college campus police, have had very few issues writing these citations. Only about 0 or 1% being sent back because they were insufficient. Reporting live from City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Coming up after the break, 3 police officers shot in Washington, D.C. The latest details on the investigation in a live report from our nation's capital.
Teenagers being robbed on their way to school, and now the question is what's being done to keep students safe. Fox 45 News is pressing law enforcement for more information on their investigation.
Plus, multiple Israeli airstrikes under investigation by the U.S. Why some are pointing to the misuse of bombs and missiles.
A chilly and breezy Valentine's Day. We saw the sunshine, so we're thankful for that. Tonight's going to be getting chilly again. And it's going to be clear, but you know what? In just the next couple days, we're going to be talking about snow again. We'll tell you coming up.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Breaking now back to Kansas City, where reports say up to 10 people were shot during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. On the left side of your screen, video of the moments those shots were fired. You can see thousands of fans who heard the gunshots, knew something was going on, running for safety. And on the right, a live look now of the scene along the route. Again, fire officials say 8 to 10 people were injured in the shooting. It is not clear yet exactly how many people were hurt. Police have 2 people in custody. And also breaking out of Washington, D.C. today, 3 police officers are shot while serving a warrant. Happened around 7:30 this morning. Officials say that warrant was issued by the Humane Society for cruelty to animals. Let's go right to Rebecca Turco from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. with the very latest on what happened this morning. Rebecca?
Well, it has certainly been a very busy day and still a very busy crime scene. We can see multiple police cars, and we're actually a little ways removed from where everything is actually going on, over from that home in question over on Hannah Place. Now, the chief says this all started around 7:30 this morning when police officers went to that home to make an animal cruelty arrest. They had an arrest warrant, but the chief says the man refused to come outside, and when officers tried getting in, he opened fire. 3 officers were shot, and they're expected to be okay. The chief says she and the mayor saw them earlier today, and they're in good spirits. A 4th officer was hurt in all of this and sent to the hospital with minor injuries. The chief said in a press conference earlier that police have been negotiating with the suspect inside on the phone, and that his manner has been up and down.
It appears as though during conversation he seems to communicate very effectively with us, but then there are times he appears to be very agitated.
Now, what's not clear at this point is whether the man who was shooting at police is the same person that they went there to try to arrest. Police could not clarify earlier, saying they haven't identified him yet. What's also unclear is the nature of this animal cruelty case. The chief saying she didn't know how many dogs are in the home, and that's because officers weren't able to get inside in the first place. So still very much an active scene here, still questions, even though we do have some answers, but a lot more to learn. And the chief says they're going to be out here for as long as it takes them to get the suspect into custody. Reporting live in D.C., I'm Rebecca Turco.
Rebecca, thank you. This, of course, a developing story. We'll continue to bring you the latest on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Well, the Northeast digging out of the heaviest snowstorm of the year. At least 15 inches fell in parts of Connecticut, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Officials are reporting at least 1 death, a woman who was killed by a falling brick while trying to clear snow from the front of her home. People trying to deal with the weather are now taking extra steps to stay safe.
I'm 71 years old, so I'm about at my end of my shoveling days. It's like shoveling water. It's very heavy.
We heard a branch break, and then it looked like a lightning bolt as the transformer blew on top of the power lines right behind our house.
Despite this nor'easter, snow totals for this season are well below average throughout much of the Northeast, with places like Syracuse, New York, and Erie, Pennsylvania running upwards of 50 inches behind their averages.
Most of those areas that are so under, they're in that sort of snow belt along the lake where they usually get lake effect snow. They need to have the wind off the lake in order to produce that. We just haven't gotten a lot of that this year. Not a lot of cold air moving across the lake to cause it. All right, here we are. Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day. And, well, we are looking at sunshine, at least. It's been a breezy day and a bit on the chilly side. I'll give you that. But otherwise, not too shabby. We're in the low 40s to mid 40s and some 30s still creeping in there. We're going to continue to see mostly clear skies tonight. I have an awesome satellite image I want you guys to see. First of all, you can see the wind coming off the lake up near Pennsylvania and Ohio. You can see the texture in the sky. You can even make out these little lines there. You see every one of those? Those are called gravity waves. which is a very fancy meteorological way of saying it's almost like when you drop a rock into a pond, it makes ripples. The same thing happens in the atmosphere. Something else to see. Look at this. You can see the snow on the ground everywhere from Boston through New York and then up through just to the north of us into Pennsylvania. So cool satellite imagery that I thought you guys might enjoy seeing. We got lucky. We saw all the snow melt away so quickly. All right, tonight, chilly, of course, dropping to the 20s again, but otherwise it shouldn't be too bad at all. We'll get a little bit of passing cloud coverage as we move through your Thursday night, and then Friday we're back to seeing some chillier air, but I think we'll get a brief respite here as we get into the upper 40s on Thursday into Friday. So we get a little bit of warmer air coming in, and that's with this storm system moving across. But as you can see, it's going to drag a cold front right through, knock our temperatures back as we get into Friday. Here comes our storm system that could bring us a chance for some snowfall. And right now, we've got the chances pretty good. We may actually see some of that. How much are we talking? Right now, not a whole lot. Maybe a dusting to a few inches are on the table. It's not like it's going to be a major storm, but it could bring some impacts as we move into the weekend. And the timing of this is mainly going to be Friday night into Saturday morning. So we're all likely going to be in bed asleep when most of this happens. But you could wake up Saturday morning to have to dust off your car. We could have some covering the ground in some places, maybe a little bit on the roads. But otherwise, we'll be watching for some chillier air to come our way for the weekend. Not anything that's going to majorly be a problem to your weekend. That's the good news. And next week, I think we're actually going to warm up a bit. We'll be in the 50s by around Monday to Tuesday.
Well, at least 4 Howard County students all robbed on their way to school in one morning. Why police believe juveniles may be behind the thefts. The president says without more help from the U.S., Ukraine may lose the war with Russia. The battle in Congress right now. Were U.S. weapons used to commit a war crime? Why U.S. officials are pressing Israel for answers. The U.S. wants to know if Israel has misused its bombs and missiles to kill civilians in Gaza. In other words, using U.S.-made weapons to commit what could be war crimes. According to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. is investigating several Israeli airstrikes. U.S. officials have so far ruled out putting conditions on arms transfers to pressure Israel, but face increasing calls to do so.
going to continue to support Israel. They have a right and responsibility to go after Hamas. We're going to make sure that they can continue to do that. But as from the very beginning, we want to make sure that they do that in a way that fully accounts for the preservation of innocent life and civilian infrastructure.
Israel won't say whether it will cooperate with the investigation, but denies any misuse of weapons. Israel's bombardment in Gaza has left more than 28,000 people dead. Palestinian health authorities don't distinguish, though, between civilians and combatants. A live look at Capitol Hill, where an aid bill that would send billions of dollars to Israel and Ukraine is in jeopardy after House Speaker Mike Johnson warned the Senate bill would be dead on arrival in the House. Members of the House are now trying to work out cuts to the spending plan to get Johnson's support. Here's how the Senate's $95 billion bill breaks down. $60 billion goes to Ukraine for its defense against Russia. $14 billion goes to Israel. $9 billion is for humanitarian aid, and nearly $5 billion is for Indo-Pacific partners. President Biden pushing for its passage, but some Republicans say if Johnson goes forward, it could cost him the speakership.
If the Speaker were to put the Senate package on the floor, what would that mean for his ability to hold on to the gavel?
He would need Democrats to hold on to the gavel at that point.
Because there would be an effort to push him out?
Yeah, I mean, multiple of my colleagues have already promised that. I believe that it's not an empty threat.
Johnson says the bill is a non-starter for him because it doesn't have any provisions for southern border security. But that's after he opposed a broader bill that did have money for the border. Police say juveniles in a stolen car may be behind a string of robberies in Colombia. The break in the case that came overnight after 4 teens were targeted on their way to class. A mother says the sexual abuse of her 3-year-old daughter could have been prevented. Why she's demanding accountability from the Baltimore County Department of Social Services.
I'm Kayla Gaskins on Capitol Hill. Coming up, the GOP's latest plan to go after President Biden.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
In Howard County, police are investigating whether juveniles and a stolen car are tied to a string of early morning robberies in Columbia this week. Investigators say 4 boys at Hammond High School were targeted on their way to school Monday. This comes after at least 3 other Howard County high schoolers have been robbed or attacked on their way to or from class this year.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live in Columbia, pressing police for more information. Amy?
Yes, Mary Kai, a terrifying and really unsettling way for students to start their week. But according to police, these crimes all unfolded in about a 90-minute period first thing Monday morning.
It happened between 7 and 8:30 a.m. Monday, all in the vicinity of Hammond High School in Columbia.
We had a series of incidents that really happened back to back.
According to Howard County Police, 4 boys, Hammond High School students, robbed of wallets, backpacks, or shoes. 2 of the crimes involved handguns. Signs already pointing to juveniles as the likely suspects.
So young people who are of school-going age are familiar with when other kids are walking to and from school. So that's sort of their target, so to speak, because that's what they're familiar with.
Now Fox 45 News is learning about another alleged incident in this area, also around 8 a.m. Monday. A resident telling Fox 45 a white work van with busted outside windows was seen in this neighborhood behind Hammond High School, along Sweet Hours Way. A resident called 911 after allegedly seeing a group of teens chasing another teen boy as he yelled for help. Police confirmed receiving that 911 call, but said nobody was there when officers responded. Today, Howard County Police reveal a white van was found overnight, and that van deemed stolen, and several juveniles were arrested for auto theft. And while police were not willing to say where exactly that stolen van turned up, investigators are looking into a likely connection here in Columbia.
At this point, what the detectives have shared with us is that they were notified by another jurisdiction that a vehicle matching our suspect vehicle description was stopped and is believed to have been stolen, that there were 3 people arrested. Now we need to do the work to see whether or not those young people are connected to our cases.
But this week's crimes, not the first time teens were targeted this school year. Back in November, 2 Centennial High School students found themselves victims of armed robberies while walking home. Police later arrested 3 teen girls from Baltimore, just 14 and 15 years old, for those crimes, plus a 3rd robbery and an attempted carjacking.
And after sending questions about these 4 student robberies to Howard County Public Schools this morning, the district said notification and information would be going out to families and students this afternoon. We're live in Columbia. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Amy. And as Amy mentioned, student robberies have been an issue in Howard County for months now. Project Baltimore spoke with Wild Lake High School 10th grader Jada Jones, who described the moments she and one of her friends were robbed and assaulted by a man at a public bus stop in November.
So he was grabbing on her purse, and I started punching him and trying to get him off of her. And then he started pulling my hair and punching me like in my chest. And we both were defending ourselves, like hitting on him, trying to get him off of us because he was fighting back. And I guess we let him loose, like we got off of him and we started running.
Well, Jones says that she was only at that public bus stop because the county had cut their school bus service to her area. For more information on this story and for full coverage of these Howard County robberies, go to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
This legislative session, youth crime bills have a top priority in Annapolis. Maryland Democrats proposing bills that would allow children as young as 10 to be charged with violent crimes, increase probation for kids, and more. Today, Fox 45's Megan Gillen spoke with the Baltimore community leader about whether he thinks these bills are a step in the right direction.
The debate over how best to quell juvenile crime continues in Annapolis, with a slew of bills now up for debate in a Senate committee. But so far, no votes in either chamber have been taken. Lifelong Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith weighing in on the inaction thus far.
For 8 years, they did nothing under Hogan. This first year, they've done nothing under Governor West. And what they've basically done is kick the can further down the road. Before you know it, this quote-unquote trend will become a norm.
Let's go ahead and talk about some of the bills that they were talking about yesterday to see if they can make a difference. One of them calling for a change to the Child Interrogation Act. We've been talking about this a lot. This would allow parents to consult with their children before speaking with an attorney. Do you think that's a good idea? Is that helpful?
I believe so. Number one, nobody cares more about the child than the parent. From my experience, my parents made me confess. The lawyer is there to make them evade the truth. No. Put it out there so that we can nip the juvenile misbehavior before it becomes adult criminal behavior.
Pastor Smith goes on to say if Marylanders want to see change, they need to vote. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
You blame CPS?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
A mother says her young daughter was sexually abused and it could have been prevented. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains why the mother is blaming the Baltimore County school system.
In Maryland, cases of suspected child abuse are reported to local departments of social services, which screen the allegations to determine whether they meet the legal criteria for child abuse and neglect. In this case, it was the Baltimore County Department of Social Services that, according to this medical report, received a call on April 25, 2022 from a doctor's office in Dundalk. The report says a mother walked into the office expressing concerns of inappropriate sexual acts forced upon her 2-year-old daughter by a then 13-year-old relative. But according to the child's mother, the CPS unit in Baltimore County did not do much investigating. She says Child Protective Services never even interviewed the accused offender. About a year later, this family got the news they feared. A second alleged victim had come forward in Harford County, a 3-year-old girl. The mother of that victim says Baltimore County should have done more.
And I feel as though had Baltimore County CPS questioned him and done their job, that my child may not be a victim.
You blame CPS?
I think that they dropped the ball 110%.
Coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10, Project Baltimore presses the Baltimore County Department of Social Services for answers, and why the mother from Baltimore County does not feel that her daughter is going to get justice. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line right there on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media.
New tonight, the Department of Education has opened a probe into Johns Hopkins University over the school's response to anti-Semitism on campus. The department will investigate whether or not the school failed to respond to allegations of anti-Semitism from students. The allegations were first reported by higher education news website Campus Reform. According to the website's editor-in-chief, some Jewish students at the university allege they feel unsafe to be known as either Jewish or pro-Israel because they fear retribution from classmates or professors. The investigation is one of 45 probes the DOE has opened into universities since October 7th. Johns Hopkins University says it will cooperate with the investigation. In a statement sent to the national desk, the school writes in part that students have a right to protest and share their views. But at the same time, threats and acts of hate violate the university's policies and its student code of conduct.
New polling by ABC News and Ipsos shows an overwhelming majority of Americans believe President Biden is too old for a second term. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more on how Republicans are capitalizing on that.
House Republicans reportedly hatching a plan to ensure Americans don't soon forget President Biden's slew of forgetful moments.
There's been a response from the there's been a response.
The strategy appearing to be in action Wednesday, with House Speaker Mike Johnson hammering the point Biden was not charged in the classified documents case, in part because he would likely be presented to a jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
A man too incapable of being held accountable for mishandling classified information is certainly unfit for the Oval Office. And everyone in this room, if you just ask yourself that question, you will come to the same conclusion.
GOP-led hearings on Biden's mental fitness, including subpoenas, are in the works, according to reporting by Axios. Many top Democrats coming to his defense.
I spent a lot of time with President Biden, be it in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He is extraordinarily smart.
Did anyone film that? If you're telling us behind the scenes he is sharp and full of energy and on top of it and really in control and leading, you should film that.
The Biden campaign going on the offensive with attack ads on Trump's age and his moments of appearing confused.
He got confused and said he was running against Obama.
And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
Despite efforts by the left to flip the script, a new ABC Ipsos poll shows 86% of Americans think President Biden is too old for another term, compared with 62% who think Donald Trump is too old.
The House GOP and the Justice Department are coordinating a time for special counsel Robert Hur to come testify publicly about his investigation into the president. That could happen as soon as late February or early March. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. How concerned are you about President Biden's mental and physical health? To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
A recent Gonzalez research poll out this morning is shedding light on how Marylanders feel about President Joe Biden and former President Trump. According to the poll, 54% of those polled approve of the job Biden is doing as president, 44% disapprove, with 2% not sharing an opinion. When it comes to former President Trump, 38% of those polled approve of the job Trump did as president, with 61% disapproving. And if the 2024 presidential election were held today in a matchup between Biden and Trump, 53% of those polled said they would vote for Biden, 32% would vote for Trump, and 15% were undecided.
We're going to go back to that breaking news out of Kansas City. CNN now reporting one person has been killed, 14 others injured in the shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. On the left side of your screen, video of the moments those shots were fired. Thousands of fans running for safety. On the right side, a live look at the Truman Medical Center in Kansas City, where it appears officials are setting up for a press conference. Two people, we are told, are in custody. Police have promised to release more information soon, but did not provide an exact time for an update. But the update we have so far is that one person has been killed in that shooting, 14 others injured.
Giving the gift of life on Valentine's Day, why one family hopes their story will encourage more to sign up for a program that saves others.
Part 1 has arrived for the Orioles. Pitchers and catchers are in Sarasota and will take the field soon. That is next on Sports Unlimited.
We're getting into that time of the year. We're talking baseball. That means spring isn't far away, right? Well, Mother Nature's not quite done with winter. We're still talking about a chance for snow. We're in that possible level right now on the snow potential meter. We're going to take you through how much we could see coming up.
Back to that breaking news out of Kansas City right now. CNN is reporting one person is dead, 14 others hurt at that shooting. This is a news conference taking place. Let's listen in for just a moment.
In the hours ahead, we will make sure we continue to do this work. I will say personally, first, a thank you to the women and men of law enforcement, to the women and men who work with the Kansas City Fire Department and our other agencies. When the shooting started, I, like many others, ran for safety. I saw a number of agencies, including the Kansas City Police Department, officers with guns drawn who were running towards danger. We thank them for that. As I was leaving the scene, I saw members of our Kansas City Fire Department administering aid to folks who were seriously injured without concern for the shootings and the challenges that were near them. This is absolutely a tragedy, the likes of which we would have never expected in Kansas City, and the likes of which we will remember for some time. However, I want to say thank you to those who are making sure that we are safe today, those who are investigating this incident, and those who will continue to make sure that those who committed these acts today are brought to justice. We'll come back for some questions at the end of the chief's comments, but now the police chief, Stacey Graves.
Chief Stacey Graves, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. At the conclusion of the chief's rally today, there were shots fired on the west side of Union Station. Immediately, officers responded to the area, took 2 people into custody, and also immediately rendered life-sustaining aid to those victims. We're still gathering information on the number and the status of victims. But like I said, we know that one of the victims is deceased. We also know that officers ran towards danger. Officers were there to keep everyone safe. I'm angry at what happened today. The people who came to this celebration should expect a safe environment. We had over 800 law enforcement officers, Kansas City and other agencies, at the location to keep everyone safe. Because of bad actors, which were very few, this tragedy occurred, even in the presence of uniformed law enforcement officers, who again ran towards them and took them into custody. To the people who were injured in this tragedy, our hearts go out to you and your families. This investigation is just beginning, and we are working safely to clear all surrounding areas and businesses. This is still an active investigation. We will continue to keep you updated. We will keep you updated on Twitter and most likely a follow-up press availability. Did you have anything? No. One of our victims has been declared deceased. We have right now we have up to 10 to 15 injured by yes. Right now we do not have an exact number of people who were victims of a gunshot wound. It could be upwards from 10 to 15 with one deceased. I do not have conditions on our victims just yet.
Any believed to be children?
I do not believe that any of them were children.
Any law enforcement injured in this? First responders?
Nothing of note.
Chief, what do you guys believe now prompted the shooting?
That is still under investigation. I myself was outside when I heard the shots fired. It is an ongoing investigation. It's going to take us a little bit to determine exactly what led up to the shooting. I will say, though, we do have 2 suspects in custody.
There are rumors circulating on social media that some fans may have helped to detain one of those.
I have heard that as well. I have heard that fans got involved in the apprehension or the pursuit of one of the suspects. I cannot confirm that right now, but that is something that I have heard myself. Yes?
The response time, because you say 800 officers there, this happened pretty quickly. So can you talk about when this started, sort of a timeline from there to the point where your officers responded to the point where you had KCFD helping to
Absolutely.
your first aid?
As soon as the rally concluded, there were shots fired on the west side of Union Station. Officers were on scene in the area. I know one of the suspects was immediately pursued on foot. Like I said, there's 2 suspects in custody. I have heard the information that was just requested. I will confirm or deny that. But after that, immediately officers began rendering life-sustaining aid, calling in fire, which is the fire department, to also assist those victims.
Do you know if there were more than 2 people taken into custody? Because we had 2 people, after you guys had made your announcement, there were 2 people in custody, 2 people live on our air being taken, handcuffed, put into vans. So please tell us about
Live right now with Kansas City, Missouri Police Chief Stacey Graves. Chief Graves said 1 person is deceased tragically in what should have been a happy Super Bowl celebration for fans of the Kansas City Chiefs. 10 to 15 injured. 2 suspects are in custody. They don't believe any children were hurt, and so far no word of any law enforcement hurt. But this is an active investigation, and they are still compiling data, so it's early right now. Again, it should have been a wonderful celebration for the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, but it has been marred by someone who's been killed and shooting that took place at their parade. We'll have more information coming up. Well, coming up at 5 o'clock, frustration over the city's citation docket. Why city council members are questioning the effectiveness of the docket.
Welcome back. At least your Valentine's Day, we didn't have too many problems weather-wise. A little breezy. Chilly temperatures, though. We're up in the upper 30s, low 40s now. But otherwise, I think as you head out for some evening plans, you will just need the jackets. It's going to be getting chilly. By 10 o'clock, we're dropping below freezing in many areas here. A few places to the south may just be a couple degrees above that. And then tomorrow, we're not talking about it being too bad at all. In fact, we'll start out kind of chilly, but upper 40s to around 50 degrees with a few passing clouds, mainly in the overnight hours before we get into your Friday. And speaking of the weekend here, we're tracking a couple of systems. One of those is the one that's going to bring some of those clouds overnight Thursday night. No precipitation, but definitely some cooler air moving in for your Friday, and that is setting up for the next system, which is going to bring us a chance for some snowfall. How much are we talking about? Well, most of the data is in agreement, actually. We don't usually get that, but we're actually talking somewhere in the range of a dusting to about 3 inches possible. We can fine-tune that and get, of course, more specific as we get a little bit closer, but you should prepare to see some snowflakes flying around on Friday night. They're pretty likely here, and then we may even have some on the ground when you wake up first thing on Saturday morning. Temperatures will stay pretty chilly. Again, we will reach up near 50 degrees as we move through the day tomorrow. But as we head into the rest of the weekend, at least this is not going to be a major impact to your weekend plans, other than maybe having to dust the car off on Saturday morning that we can see. But we'll continue to see our temperatures recovering as we get past Sunday, and then we're back to 50s on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Gerard, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, breaking and just horrible news out of Kansas City, where a celebration has turned into an absolute tragedy at their Super Bowl parade. We'll have an update for you. A bill surrounding crime on school campuses. It's a hot topic in Annapolis. We'll hear from those proposing the controversial bill and why some call it tone deaf.
But sure, it was a frantic situation, and it is still a little chaotic.
Fox 45 News continues to follow the breaking news out of Kansas City tonight, where violence breaks out during the Chiefs' victory parade. Those in attendance describing the terrifying moments gunshots rang out.
Frustration is brewing at City Hall over the effectiveness of that citation docket. City council members are questioning the low numbers being reported.
Plus, a new bill looking to decriminalize certain crimes on school grounds. Front and center in Annapolis, why some lawmakers are calling it tone deaf.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Tonight, Fox 45 News following two breaking stories. The first out of Kansas City, Missouri. One person is dead, up to 15 others injured following a shooting during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Police say they have taken 2 people into custody. Right now, it's unclear what sparked the shooting. Authorities have asked the thousands of Chiefs fans who gathered for the celebration to leave the area. Most have at this hour. Bystanders at the scene describing the moment that chaos erupted.
We saw people running out of Union Station on the east side of the doors pretty frantically, and at that moment we were receiving information that we needed to change where we were, so just to gather and then just get to a safe space. So there was information provided quickly, which was nice, but sure, it was a frantic situation, and it is still a little chaotic as people are still finding family members and understanding where is the best, most safe route away.
Police and the Kansas City mayor are currently holding a news conference. We dipped into that last hour. Again, they confirmed one person is dead. Multiple others are hurt following today's shooting. We will continue to update you on the story, both on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
We're also following breaking news out of Washington, D.C., where 3 police officers were shot this morning after trying to serve an arrest warrant. Now, police say it happened around 7:30 at a home in Southeast. According to officials, officers tried to make contact with the suspect numerous times, but they say he refused to come out. When officers tried to gain entry into the suspect's home, police say he fired shots at them. Police said all 3 officers suffered non-life-threatening injuries and were taken to area hospitals. As of now, the suspect remains barricaded inside his home. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll have a live report from D.C. with the latest.
Between July dockets and the December dockets, 35 citations issued by the Baltimore City Police made it to a citation docket.
The effectiveness of Baltimore City citation docket is front and center at an oversight hearing at City Hall.
Today, several council members expressed disappointment and frustration with the low numbers of citations written since the docket was introduced last summer by City State's Attorney Ivan Bates.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live from City Hall with more on the council members' concerns. Maxine?
Well, Kai, it's been about 7 months since that docket began, and today we've learned BPD only issuing a few dozen citations since then, nearly half of them rejected due to officer error.
The citation docket launched by Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates last year was meant to tackle low-level quality-of-life crimes. Crimes once ignored by the previous administration under Marilyn Mosby. But the effectiveness of the docket is now being called into question by several Baltimore City Council members.
Why is the volume of citations issued so low?
It's still a process for us, right, to issue a citation. Even if we see that individual doing something, we still have other policies that doesn't say as soon as we engage, we're automatically issuing a citation.
Since the docket launched last July through December 2023, the state's attorney's office says just 35 citations issued by BPD made it to court, but about half were rejected by police internally, meaning they were legally insufficient to proceed to prosecution. This year, in January, police have issued 8 citations, and the state's attorney's office says 6 were rejected. Police saying it often comes down to errors in the language, pointing out officers haven't written citations in a long time.
Unfortunately, this sounds like officer errors that could be corrected.
The state's attorney's office says they offered to train BPD on issuing citations correctly, but haven't been taken up on the offer. Meanwhile, they say other agencies they trained, including MDTA and Amtrak, are having little to no issues writing legally acceptable citations.
This BPD is the anomaly here in these data sets, and I would have more reassurance as to the effectiveness of this had BPD taken SAO up on the offer for the training.
Police promising to connect with the state's attorney's office and close the gap as council members worry the citation docket isn't living up to expectations.
Now, police do say just making contact with people, even if it is just a warning, does seem to be effective in helping reduce these low-level crimes. Reporting live tonight from City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Turning now to session 2024, where lawmakers are meeting to tackle several public safety bills.
And one of those bills could help juvenile offenders escape justice for violent crimes at school.
The other could provide a solution to the problem of stolen guns. We have live team coverage following these 2 key hearings in Annapolis, starting with Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost. She joins us now with the latest on a bill that would make stealing a firearm a felony. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mary, right now that crime is a misdemeanor in Maryland, right? And we've heard several different pieces of testimony and conversation surrounding why supporters of this bill say this needs to be changed and it should be a felony in Maryland instead of a misdemeanor. Earlier today, the House Judiciary Committee did in fact take this bill up, and we heard some testimony from the bill's sponsor, a Republican delegate from Anne Arundel County. And it was interesting because this House committee really started to debate the difference between simply possessing a stolen firearm or the act of actually stealing one. And the sponsors of this bill right now argue that they really need to focus on this theft of the firearm, and that's why they believe this bill specifically needs to move forward.
To be in possession of a legal firearm is one thing, and that's a problem. But I think the actual act of stealing it is something we have to address at this body, because I mentioned yesterday in a meeting that there are children walking around the streets right now with illegal possession of firearms because they want to live through the night and wake up tomorrow morning. And so that's possession. But what we're talking about in this bill is people actually actively going into people's cars, into their homes, taking them off people and stealing firearms to then flood the black market with. And I think, dealing with possession is one thing. I think it's important, but I think theft is more important because that is the root of this problem, not the symptom.
Now, we've heard conversations happen earlier this month. The Senate Judiciary Committee actually took up a similar bill, and the support seems to be growing for this change in Maryland. We just saw the latest Gonzalez poll out yesterday indicate that 88% of Marylanders say they believe that the theft of a firearm should, in fact, be a felony in Maryland.
It boggles my mind, quite frankly, that it hasn't yet been made a felony. This is one of those issues. It's a serious, very important issue. Stop playing. Don't play games.
No votes were taken during the House committee hearing today on this specific bill, but coming up tonight at 10, we'll take a little deeper dive into this issue and hear from other supporters about this, as well as some of the concerns from lawmakers who will ultimately have the final say. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think lawmakers should make stealing a firearm a felony? That poll just opened. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Lawmakers in that hearing are discussing Governor Wes Moore's proposed Center for Firearm Violence Prevention. The health department would run the center and oversee funding for community organizations that are trying to get guns off the streets.
It's using data and predictive analytics in a way that informs what interventions need to be deployed. For example, communities that have experienced trauma, oftentimes resources go into the community for a day, a couple of days, but that trauma and the effects of that trauma not always felt in the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours. And so really wrapping services in community of trauma and addressing those issues through behavioral health interventions, other community supports would be one way to address this.
Well, when the governor first proposed the new program last month, Fox 45 News spoke with taxpayer watchdog David Williams, who says the state already has been putting millions of dollars into similar plans.
When we see just the very recent past that the nonprofits in Baltimore City are not helping the crime situation. And in fact, there are more questions than answers when it comes to these nonprofits receiving money. And this could be a massive waste of taxpayer money.
The hearing today comes as we continue to see more incidents involving guns in schools. Fox 45 News learning a 14-year-old student at the Stadium School in Northeast Baltimore was arrested just this morning and charged with a handgun violation. According to a city school spokesperson, the student was arrested after a brief foot chase. Sources tell Fox 45 News staff at the school found the loaded gun inside the boy's backpack.
As violence escalates on campuses across the state, some lawmakers are looking to decriminalize certain crimes occurring on school grounds.
From physical to sexual assaults, a new bill making its way through the legislature would block students from facing criminal charges for disturbing school activities.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us with a closer look into the controversial new bill and why some call it tone deaf. Rebecca.
Yeah, Mary and Kai, critics of this bill say that the timing of it is what's particularly appalling here. Juvenile crime has been at the center of debate here in Annapolis, particularly the rise in juvenile crime that we're seeing across the state. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle proposing new measures for more accountability and harsher consequences for young offenders. Meanwhile, this bill would do the opposite. In fact, if passed, House Bill 615 would block students from being charged with disturbing school activities on elementary, middle, high school, and college campuses. Now, to clarify, that charge is often paired with violent offenses, including arson, sexual assaults, attacks with a weapon, threats, and fighting. Under this bill, students could still face charges for those specific crimes, but they would no longer face the additional charge of disturbing school activities. Currently, that charge carries a fine of up to $2,500 and up to 6 months behind bars, penalties that would be prevented under this bill. Now, the measure was up for debate during a Ways and Means Committee hearing today. The bill's author, Delegate Shalea Ruth, arguing that the charge disproportionately targets children of color and those with disabilities. She also says that it excessively punishes what she calls typical child behavior, to which many lawmakers fired back, questioning why higher education was then included. Following the hearing, we pressed Delegate Ruth on those concerns.
Those kinds of things need to be handled with age-appropriate internal school discipline. But if something is a crime, it can still be charged as a crime.
You talk about age appropriateness. Should adults be included in this bill?
So this doesn't really address adults.
Students in college are adults.
Students in college are adults, but the brain does not fully develop until age 25. And so most students in college are ages 18 to 21. They're still learning how to be adults. And again, on college, if somebody commits a crime, they can be charged with a crime.
Now, again, this proposal comes at a time that juvenile crime is skyrocketing across the state, which is arguably a top issue that lawmakers are trying to tackle this session. With that in mind, many lawmakers called this bill's timing counterproductive and tone deaf.
So one of the things that's been very concerning to me, and I know many teachers who are leaving the profession because of disruptive behavior and some of those that you might consider normal.
This is a huge problem, and it's going to, I think, only encourage more juvenile issues in a time when we have a huge spike in juvenile crime.
Now, no vote was held on this bill today, but this bill, a form of it, has passed in the House twice before. Reporting live in Annapolis, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Fox 45 continuing to follow that breaking news out of Kansas City, where one person is dead after 15 others injured following a shooting during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. After the break, we're going to break down what we know so far.
We're also following breaking news out of Washington, D.C., where 3 police officers were shot today. Coming up, a live report from D.C. with the latest.
You're headed out for some Valentine's Day dinner. Well, should be just a little bit on the chilly side. That's not the only thing we're talking about. We actually have a chance of snow once again in the forecast. As we head into the weekend, we're going to track it for you coming up.
Back to that breaking news out of Kansas City, Missouri, where fire officials say one person is dead, up to 15 are injured following a shooting at the end of the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade and celebration. Police have taken 2 armed individuals into custody. Right now, it's unclear what sparked the shooting. The mayor of Kansas City and police held a press conference late this afternoon. The mayor said he's heartbroken that this happened. The investigation continues. Also breaking out of Washington, D.C. today, 3 police officers are shot while serving a warrant. Happened around 7:30 this morning. Officials say that warrant was issued by the Humane Society for cruelty to animals. Let's go right to Rebecca Turco from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. with the latest update. Rebecca.
I don't want the kids to see this. You know, I don't want the kids to see this. I don't want the kids to worry. You know, my son loves going outside. All kids love going outside. But how do I explain to him, you cannot go outside? You cannot.
They're going to try and come back to us? Well, the chief tells us this all started around 7:30 this morning when police officers went to the home on Hannah Place to make an animal cruelty arrest. They had an arrest warrant, but the chief says the man refused to come outside, and when officers tried getting in, they say that's when he opened fire. 3 officers were shot. They are expected to be okay. The chief says she and the mayor actually saw them earlier and that they're in good spirits. A 4th officer was hurt in all of this and sent to the hospital with minor injuries. The chief said in a press conference this afternoon that police have been negotiating with the suspect on the phone and that his manner really has been up and down. One neighbor we caught up with is upset with the ongoing crime in the area. She says she's had it.
I don't want the kids to see this. You know, I don't want the kids to see this. I don't want the kids to worry. You know, my son loves going outside. All kids love going outside. But how do I explain to him, you cannot go outside? You cannot.
Now, it's not clear at this point is whether the man shooting at police is the same person they were trying to arrest in the first place. Police could not clarify earlier, saying they haven't been able to identify him yet since they couldn't get inside. What's also unclear is the nature of this animal cruelty case. The chief saying she didn't know how many dogs are in the home. Again, for the same reasoning, they haven't been able to get inside. And as far as how much longer the standoff could be lasting, only time will tell. The chief saying that they're going to be staying out here for as long as it takes to get that suspect into custody. Reporting live in D.C., Rebecca Turco, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. This is a developing story. We will bring you the latest on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
Hopefully everyone's had a great Valentine's Day. We've got some sunshine around. We don't have to deal with anything other than the chillier air that's been sticking around. It was a bit breezy today, too. I'm sure that you noticed that, but something kind of cool I really wanted to show. So we, of course, saw that storm system and it produced snow, and this is the satellite image from earlier. You can see that everywhere from Boston down towards southern Pennsylvania, right there bordering across parts of Maryland. Look at the clouds streaming across. You can even make out little textures in them. This is what we call gravity waves, which is basically just like when you throw a rock into a pool of water, it makes ripples. You're seeing the ripples in the atmosphere as they come by with that colder air out of the north. Really cool image I wanted you guys to check out. All right, so temperatures tonight getting chilly again, dropping to the freezing mark by around 10 o'clock. We'll be in the overnight hours. We'll be in the 20s or so, but tomorrow not so bad. We're still hitting close to 50 degrees, just some passing clouds. But as we get closer towards the weekend, we first have this system here. That's the one bringing us our cloud cover as we move through late Thursday into Friday. But we're going to get some colder air behind it. That sets up some possibility for snowfall with the next system. We'll be in the colder air this time, so just about anything that would fall would likely fall as some snow. And most of the data is showing that we could see anywhere from a dusting to 3 inches possible as we move into overnight Friday night into early Saturday morning. It's looking pretty small right now, though. Not much. We're talking maybe, like I said, a dusting to about an inch. You could add or even subtract an inch from these numbers. This is just an idea of what we're talking about for the time being. So we'll see how things are shaping up. We still got another day or two to really get more specific with it. But you can definitely see that we've got a 90% chance of that snow possibility on the 7-day forecast here. That's going to be very late overnight, most likely after midnight through around 8 in the morning on Saturday. And we'll see if the timing changes on that at all. But that's the way it's looking, and that's our only weather maker that we have. We're going to warm up to the upper 40s, low 50s by Monday to Tuesday.
Services took place at the Baltimore Basilica today as Christians around the world observe Ash Wednesday, marking the beginning of Lent. Ash Wednesday is a holy day of prayer and fasting. Many Christians believe that you should give up something like television, sweets, or alcohol during Lent as a modern form of fasting. Others choose to do something positive to help others.
And it signals the beginning of a season when we deprive ourselves, engage in self-denial, when we pray more and better, and when we are more generous to the poor and those who are in need.
Lent ends in 40 days on Easter Sunday. Coming up, a mother says Baltimore County Child Protective Services could have protected her daughter from being sexually abused. The new details of Project Baltimore investigation is revealing tonight.
Critics call it reckless rhetoric, but did it produce real results? I'm Christine Frizzau in Washington with brand new comments from the head of NATO in response to a threat from former President Trump.
Tonight, the NATO Secretary General responding to former President Trump's comments about NATO countries who don't pay what they owe to be part of the alliance. While many Republicans have joined Democrats in calling the comments reckless and irresponsible, he says it's a valid point and has led to the strengthening of the alliance. National correspondent Christine Frizzau reports.
The U.S. relationship with NATO back in the spotlight after former President Trump said this over the weekend.
They said, "You didn't pay, you're delinquent." He said, "Yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay."
immediately following a chorus of criticism that Trump was bowing down to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American. When America gives its word, it means something. When we make a commitment, we keep it. And NATO is a sacred commitment.
Indeed, the only time Article 5 has been used was for other countries to come to the defense of the United States after the terror attacks of 9/11. But others say Trump's tough talk boils down to burden sharing.
You have to focus on what's the intent, what's the context. He wants a stronger NATO. He is putting his finger in NATO's chest, not because he wants to get out NATO, not because he wants Russia to win, because he wants people to step up and do the right thing.
The point apparently taken by many of the 31 NATO countries, which significantly upped their spending while Donald Trump was in office, and even more so once Ukraine was invaded by Russia. While the United States spends about 3.5%, NATO's guidelines suggest member states should spend at least 2% of their gross domestic product on their own defense, which NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says is happening more than ever.
That's exactly what NATO allies are doing. With a record high increase in defense spending last year, with now 18 allies spending 2% or more.
Last year's list of countries spending even below 1.5% included many with close ties to the United States, including Spain, Italy, and Canada, with Belgium at just 1.13% and Luxembourg at less than 1%, sitting at the very bottom of the list. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Still ahead, students targeted on their way to school. Why Howard County Police believe juveniles in a stolen car may be to blame. The family of a murdered Baltimore teenager fighting to make sure she is not forgotten. Why they say they were blindsided by changes to a bill in their daughter's name.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
Howard County Police are investigating whether juveniles in a stolen car are tied to a string of early morning robberies in Columbia this week.
Investigators say 4 boys at Hammond High School were targeted on their way to school Monday.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson pressed police for more information and has their response.
A terrifying and unsettling way for students to start their week, and signs are already pointing to juveniles as likely suspects. According to Howard County Police, these crimes unfolded in a 90-minute period between about 7 and 8:30 a.m. Monday morning. 4 boys, Hammond High School students, were robbed of wallets, backpacks, or shoes. 2 of the crimes involved handguns. Fortunately, no serious injuries were reported, and this afternoon, police revealed a break in the case came overnight.
We've just learned that overnight, a vehicle that matches our vehicle description of our suspects was stopped last night in another jurisdiction and was declared to have been stolen. A number of juveniles were arrested for that vehicle theft, and we are looking into the likelihood that they were probably linked to the cases that we had here in Howard County.
Today, police would not say exactly where that stolen van was recovered, only referring to it as a neighboring jurisdiction. Meanwhile, the district says a community message about these incidents would be going out this afternoon. In Columbia, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News continues to follow the breaking news out of Kansas City tonight. 1 person is dead, at least 15 others injured in a shooting at the end of the Kansas City Chiefs championship parade and celebration. 2 armed suspects have been taken into custody, and the investigation is ongoing. Officials in the Super Bowl championship city are angry that this tragic event could occur at a time for celebration.
I'm angry at what happened today. The people who came to this celebration should expect a safe environment. We had over 800 law enforcement officers, Kansas City and other agencies, at the location to keep everyone safe. Because of bad actors, which were very few, this tragedy occurred.
Those in attendance remembering the terrifying moments they heard gunshots.
And I was just telling everybody to get down, and then like get out the way, and the officers were coming around, and that's what they did. Yeah. So,
Chris, you were saying that you saw police?
We saw the police swarm a stairwell, and then we heard another pop from there, and that's when I was like, okay, we're gone.
Again, police say 1 person has been killed, multiple others hurt following today's shooting. We'll continue to update you on this story both on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. The family of a deadly shooting victim voicing disappointment tonight, saying a bill named after their loved one was absorbed in the state's larger juvenile crime plan without their knowledge.
15-year-old Nikayla Straughter was killed by a 9-year-old boy, according to police. Excuse me.
God bless you.
Thank you, Mary. In August of 2022, the boy is too young to face charges, according to state law, in the shooting.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels has more on the Straughter family's frustrations as they continue to fight for justice.
In Annapolis, the winds of change in the air.
Now move on to Senator Carter.
Inside the Senate building.
With Senate Bill 2.
At a Judicial Proceedings Committee hearing Tuesday,
Nikayla Straughter,
the family of a teen shot and killed by a 9-year-old boy, pressing members of the committee to consider this.
We, the family, ask that you please collaborate with your colleagues in the House to move Senate Bill 2 forward.
Senate Bill 2, titled the Nikayla Straughter Memorial Act, which would mandate needed services through the Department of Juvenile Services for a child under 10 who commits a crime that results in death. 15-year-old Straughter was shot and killed in August 2022, gunned down on her front porch in Southwest Baltimore. The shooter, a 9-year-old boy. Current state law forbids kids under 10 from being prosecuted for any reason. And currently, an intake officer has the option to submit the petition for services with the juvenile justice system.
At that point where we all want the services, right?
Straughter's family calling the mandate essential legislation.
So absent of the services for this young child, they would in fact be on the trajectory to recommit additional violence offense. and it really becomes a pipeline to adult prison.
It's a bill that unanimously passed the Senate last year, but stalled in the House, killing it. But a few weeks ago, the family learned language from the bill, named in honor of their loved one, was absorbed in the Democrats' juvenile crime plan announced recently. Family members say they weren't even notified of the changes. The bill's language, they say, created in partnership with Senator Jill Carter, was used, but Strotter's name stripped from the bill. Legislation, they say, that should bear her name.
It's important to understand that on just one end, Nakayla was a hero in this story. She was protecting her little siblings, and I'm going to continue to reinforce that. She was protecting them, so on one end, she deserves it.
The family now pushing once again for a standalone bill in honor of Strotter.
This is a bill that would actually affect real people and fix a real problem, and it is a legislative fix to a hole in our system.
In the end, committee chair Senator William Smith Jr. with words that give the family hope.
Every member of this committee voted for that bill last year. We'll keep that bill standalone and advance it like we did last year. I want to make sure that you all know that.
While the measure with a yes vote could mean the House picks it up next, then ultimately the new law with their loved one's name. In Annapolis, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Tonight, we're learning 3 15-year-olds and 1 16-year-old were involved in an alleged robbery outside Towson Town Center over the weekend. According to a source, the 14s approached an individual outside of Round 1 Bowling and Amusement and forcibly took his watch. Police say the group then ran from the scene but were later stopped by police on East Joppa Road. On Sunday, Fox 45 News spoke with a woman who says incidents like these have left her scared.
It's very upsetting. As I understand it, it was a group of youth. It's not an easy thing to know that in my neighborhood that this kind of thing is happening when we are out and about just doing our business.
Well, right now, it's unclear if the teens are facing any charges.
You blame CPS?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
A mother says her daughter was sexually abused and it could have been prevented. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains why the mother is blaming Baltimore County Child Protective Services.
In Maryland, cases of suspected child abuse are reported to local departments of social services, which screen the allegations to determine whether they meet the legal criteria for child abuse and neglect. In this case, it was the Baltimore County Department of Social Services that, according to this medical report, received a call on April 25, 2022 from a doctor's office in Dundalk. The report says a mother walked into the office expressing concerns of inappropriate sexual acts forced upon her 2-year-old daughter by a then 13-year-old relative. But according to the child's mother, the CPS unit in Baltimore County did not do much investigating. She says Child Protective Services never even interviewed the accused offender. About a year later, this family got the news they feared. A second alleged victim had come forward in Harford County, a 3-year-old girl. The mother of that victim says Baltimore County should have done more.
And I feel as though had Baltimore County CPS questioned him and done their job, that my child may not be a victim.
You blame CPS?
I think that they dropped the ball 110%.
Coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10, Project Baltimore presses the Baltimore County Department of Social Services for answers, and why the mother from Baltimore County does not feel that her daughter is going to get justice. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call that tip line on your screen or send an email to Project Baltimore at foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media.
The U.S. Department of Education has opened a probe into Johns Hopkins University over the school's response to anti-Semitism on campus. The department will investigate whether or not the school failed to respond to allegations of anti-Semitism from students. The allegations were first reported by higher education news website Campus Reform. According to the website's editor-in-chief, some Jewish students at the university allege they feel unsafe to be known as either Jewish or pro-Israel because they fear retribution from their classmates or professors. The investigation is one of 45 probes the DOE has opened into universities since October 7. Johns Hopkins University, for its part, says it will cooperate with the investigation. In a statement sent to the National Desk, the school writes in part that students have a right to protest and share their views, but at the same time, threats and acts of hate violate the university's policies and its student code of conduct. Still ahead, a sweet love story that continues to bloom every Valentine's Day. The romantic surprise when